1066 was William I, William the Conqueror, and he was a Frenchman. And so him and his son and his grandson, Henry I, were governing us according to the French laws, the Norman laws, and they set aside our law, which was King Edward's law. Edward was a Saxon king. And we had Alfred's laws, and we had a whole load of Anglo-Saxon laws that were already our body of law, as well as the Roman laws that we'd had from the Roman Empire. So we'd had 1,000 years of laws before, 1066, that we've actually got on record. William the Conqueror came in and just set them all aside, introduced feudal laws, and when Henry I, his grandson, tried to take the throne, he was in France at the time, and we essentially told him to stay there. He wasn't welcome coming back because he wasn't going to govern us in accordance with our laws. And so the deal that was struck with him was that he had to issue a Charter of Liberties, confirming all our liberties, on his coronation. So that his coronation oath swore that he would uphold our laws, including the Charter of Liberties. Now, the Charter of Liberties, he acknowledges that, his grandfather and his father had set aside King Edward's laws, and he reinstates our common law, our Edward's laws, and then he adds some more. And that document bound his successors, right? Again, we gave some of our movables in return for that. So in contract terms, that's a legally binding contract because we gave due consideration for it. So it wasn't just a gift of the king, it was a negotiated, formal, legal contract. So that bound his successors. When John I came to the crown, as we know, this is now early 13th century, he was also breaking all of our laws. And so the barons brought him to Runnymede and they held him at knife point and said, sign this new charter, which includes the Charter of Liberties from 1100, but here's some more clauses. That was signed in 1215, but it was set aside 10 weeks later by the Pope. And one of the reasons he set it aside was because it was obtained under duress, which is against our laws. So he was right in many ways. But what happened was that the charter was reissued in 1216, and the Charter of the Forest was issued in 1217. But this was under the new king, who wasn't yet in his majority, so it wasn't issued under his Great Seal, and it wasn't put on the statute books. But when he reached 25, he issued the Magna Carta 1225, and he issued that under his Great Seal, but it wasn't put on the statute books. So when King Edward came in 80s or something, in 1297, again he had to issue the Magna Carta 1297. And what I did today to people was to print it off, because there's a lot of misinformation going around that the Magna Carta doesn't exist, it's all a nonsense. Well, it does, and it's still on our statute books, okay? So the Magna Carta, as it says, it's the Great Charter. That's why it's Latin for the Great Charter. But it's the Great Charter of the liberties of England and of the liberties of the forest, confirmed by King Edward in the 25th year of his reign. And what it says here is that he saw the Charter of Liberties of England. So Edward, by the grace of God, King of England, Lord of Ireland, etc., to all archbishops, bishops, we have seen the great Charter of the Lord Henry. That's Lord Henry I, Charter of Liberties. Sometimes King of England, our father, of the liberties of England, in these words. And that's what Henry had written. So Henry had written, and this was in 1100, Henry, by the grace of God, King of England, Lord of Ireland, Duke of Normandy, etc., to all bishops, archbishops, abbots, officers, bailiffs, everyone else, know ye that we, unto the honour of Almighty God, and for the salvation of the souls of our progenitors and successors, so progenitors means the forefathers, and successors, people coming after, kings of England, to the advancement of Holy Church and amendment of our realm, of our mere and free will have given and granted to all archbishops, bishops, etc., and barons, and to all free men of this our realm, these liberties following, to be kept in our kingdom of England forever. Right? So the King Edward acknowledges that King Henry had issued that charter, and he confirms, therefore, that these are our liberties. And chapter 9 are the liberties of London. So the city of London shall have all the old liberties and customs. And moreover, we shall grant all other cities, boroughs, towns, and the barons of the 5 ports, and all other ports shall have all their liberties and free customs. So that's still statute law. And then chapter 29 is about the people. And so no free man shall be taken or imprisoned, or be disseized of his freehold or liberties, or free customs, or be outlawed, or exiled, or any otherwise destroyed, nor will we not pass upon him nor condemn him, but by lawful judgment of his peers, or by the law of the land. We will sell to no man, we will not deny or defer to any man either justice or right. Right? So that clearly says that we have all of these rights and liberties. And what it says in the general saving provision is that everybody in the land has to uphold this. And if there are any laws that are passed that goes against this, they shall be null and void and of no effect. So any idea that a current government can come in and set this aside, for example, it will be null and void and of no effect. And on the final page of this Magna Carta, you'll see it says, changes to legislation. There are currently no known outstanding effects. So in other words, this is it. This is it, and has been since 1297. And then we have the Bill of Rights in 1688. And again, what happened here was, because the kings in the 17th century were not upholding our rights, when the new king and queen were coming to the throne, William of Orange and Mary, again, Parliament convened and we issued a declaration of our rights to the monarchy and said, in exchange for governing over us, the imperial crown, you must govern us according to our existing laws. And so in the section called Subjects' Rights, it sets out our ancient rights and liberties, and it says these are our ancient rights and liberties. Nobody gets to set them aside, and you must govern us according to that. And in fact, under the warfare conventions, the Geneva Conventions, it specifically says that the copy of the Geneva Convention must be made available to people, particularly in prisoner of war camps. So if you were a prisoner of war, you'd have more access to documents containing your human rights than if you were a kid at school or in the workplace. It's crazy. So, you know, the fact is, when people say, oh, the law's useless, it isn't. The law is actually, I mean, this is just a fraction of it. But the problem is nobody knows where to find it, they don't read it. So even the lawyers I'm working with, most of them haven't read a lot of these laws. The politicians aren't lawyers. No, the politicians aren't lawyers, the teachers aren't lawyers, the medics aren't lawyers. Well, I mean, there's a certain amount of relief, actually, because once you realise that the law is there and it's in your favour, way, yeah, way, we've got it, we've already got it. But, you know, the problem is, as I say, the fact that so many people don't even know it. So when you cite the rights, people are like looking at you like you're talking nonsense. But the sad thing is that a lot of people are put off reading the law because they think it's horribly complicated. But these human rights instruments are written in very plain English, precisely because they know it's meant to be for everybody. So, you know, for example, you know, if you look at, you know, this one, for example, Article 1, this is the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. Article 1, all peoples have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social and cultural development. So that's not hard English. It's not complicated legalese.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, so, you know, I really would encourage everyone to read it. And I think that's the power of learning all of this. So I really would encourage people. You can go on to legislation.gov.uk, put in the title bar, the search bar, you can put in human rights or put in the Magna Carta, and all of these laws will come up, and you can literally read through them, print them off, prove to people that they exist. The international ones.
It's gold standard, really.
Well, as I say, the state gave an undertaking to promote and respect human rights, but it seems not to have been followed through. But so it's a duty of all of us to do it.